Honorable Vice President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Ministers and Deputy Ministers of Government here present, Honorable Members of Parliament, including Chairman of Parliamentary Finance Committee, the Secretary to Cabinet and Head of Civil Service, Secretary to the Vice President, Diplomatic and Consular Corps, the Fourth Estate, Port Controllers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I have the honor this morning to introduce the chairman of this FY 2024 National Policy Year, which marked the commencement of FY 2024 budget. The work life of the chairman covers across both the private and public sector. He started his career in the private sector with KBF in August 2000 and later with KBMG that same year. At KBMG, he was part of the auditing that will charge with the responsibility of carrying out audits and other financial advisory services to both private and public institutions. He is a career civil servant, a technocrat, and has outstanding record of service. He joined the civil service in February 2002 as consultant budget analyst, budget theories of finance under the World Bank PSMS 2 project. At the World Bank, or the budget bureau, he was very much instrumental in preparing annual budget estimates and fiscal and monitoring tables of government of Sierra Leone. Mr. Chairman, because of his dedication to service, was appointed in September 2007 as a Director of Budget, a position that he held over 10 good years. As Director of Budget, he pioneered the preparation, approval, and execution of 13 annual and 3 supplementary budgets of government of Sierra Leone. He also pioneered the migration of the line item budgeting to the current activity-based budgeting of government. The chairman, again, because of his outstanding performance, he was, in April 2018, elevated to the position of Principal Deputy Financial Secretary, the first technocrat to be in that position, a government advisor. As the Principal Deputy Financial Secretary, he immensely contributed to both economic and financial reforms of government of Sierra Leone. Mr. Chairman, again in April in July 2023, was elevated to the enviable position of Financial Secretary as the principal advisor to the Minister of Finance and government on economy and financial matters. He holds a Master of Arts degree in economics from the University of Leone, Ohio University, United States of America. And he has a first-class Bachelor of Science degree with honors in accounting and finance. He is also a chartered accountant and a fellow of the Association of the Financial Sector, Mr. Matthew.
Thank you very much, good morning, everyone. At least I'm not looking for a job. My CV is being expounded on so much by the PFS. But thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction. Honorable Vice President, Chief Minister, Ministers of Government, Deputy Ministers, Members of Parliament here present, vote controllers, senior colleagues in the government service, non-state actors, VDOCs, and all stakeholders here present. Let me, on behalf of the Ministry of Finance and the leadership, welcome you all to this year's policy hearings for the 2024 budget. We all know every year this serves as a cutting razor for the budget preparation process. And the objective is for us to listen to a policy agenda that will form the basis of the formulation of the budget. The budget, we all know, is not prepared in a vacuum. It has to be directed by the ambitions, aims, and policy of government. And those ambitions or policies have to be translated into programs which sector ministries have to implement, and those programs have to be costed, activities determined on how they be implemented, and that's what forms the budget. At the end of the day, the Honorable Minister of Finance will present that to Parliament for approval. And because the budget itself is a bill or an act that goes through the Parliament every year, it means it has to go through the consultative process in putting it together. So that by the time it gets to the Cabinet for approval, the Cabinet will have been informed that all relevant stakeholders, all parties who should give input into the process have been consulted. The sure I should remind us doesn't mean that your view should be accepted. It just means we informed you in some part of consultation. So at least when the minister reads the budget, we don't say I was not aware. We are consulted even though your views are not captured. But we do hope that your views will be captured in this budget. Right? So that's why we are here to listen to, we know the government has set itself the agenda of the Big Five. Of course, yesterday we had the agricultural roundtable on fifth salon. And we believe that that's going to form the basis for the for 5 years. And so we know in the last administration, we all spoke about human capital development, and we saw the efforts government put into that. And we've been seeing the results in terms of performance of education right across the country, and improvements in the indicators, the human capital indicators. But it's not fitting at the time now for us to talk to fifth salon. Agriculture, we cannot overemphasize its importance, especially in the wake of all the twin crises, or even double, triple or quadruple crises that the globe has been facing over the past 3 or 4 years. COVID, from Ebola to COVID, to war in Ukraine, to all the other supply side shocks and everything. We've seen how this has affected not only low-income countries, but also even the developed countries. We see cost of living going on right across the world. And what's driving cost of living is more on what we need to live every day, food. and shelter and clothing, the basics, the essential commodities that we need to survive as human beings are being threatened by these shocks. And so us as low-income countries, we have to put in place programs that will ensure that we are resilient to these shocks. And number one of these programs is to ensure that we feed ourselves so that we don't have to depend on other countries to feed us or continue to use our scarce resources just to get the basic food that we need. So I believe that's one of the basis of this policy here, and that's why this year we decided it's only of the five agenda, of the 5 items, human capital, of course, we've had a lot, we'll still continue with public administration, technology, and the rest. But we are pioneering this financing and pass it through parliament and give your agency or departments that authority to administer those revenue tax handles, so that we can generate more revenue. The more we generate revenue, the better we need to be for government to even meet your demands in terms of allocation of resources that you want. So when we say increase my budget, you must ask yourself where is the source coming from. So if you have means within your ministry to raise revenue, but not much attention has been placed to that, this year, go and think outside the box and think innovatively and think about ways we can support you to actualize that. A friend of mine was telling me that even if we strengthen collection of building permits, we can pay the salaries of all workers every month from that. And it is true. If we look at the activities, these are the economic activities going on, but we are not getting anything from them. So if as a government, just that one tax handle, it gave me some statistics or analysis of construction going on, and just say at least 1 or 2% of that is collected as building permits. We can pay the salaries of government comfortably every month. But we are giving a blind eye to that. So these are some of the things we are going to focus on when we come to discuss your budget this year. We are not saying don't come with your proposals or annual plans, but at least think about how you can also contribute to the budget and bring in resources. We all want increased salaries, we all want better conditions of service, but that can only be sustainable if we can raise the resources and put it in the budget and then we can implement. So that's the focus of 2024 budget. It will be driven by the Big 5 agenda, to spend time to discuss with the sector, ministries and agencies that will drive the Big 5 agenda, and of course it will focus on domestic revenue generation, and then we'll see how we can sustain that over the medium term. So really I don't want to bore you with much talking this morning. I believe we are here to listen to we have very eloquent, succinct speakers that carefully selected this morning, giving us insights, more depth insights into these thematic areas or topics that will guide the 2024 budget. So without wasting more time, I want to welcome you again, and I hope we'll have an open and frank discussion after the presentation of the 5th agenda. We are ready to listen to your advice or guidance as to how we can shape it better and do a very credible budget that will be started to Parliament. So thank you very much and you're welcome once more. Thank you. So without wasting much time, I will now invite the chairman of the Parliamentary Finance Committee to make a statement on the role of Parliament in the budget process and the parliamentary expectations for MPAs for the FY 2024 budget. I invite the chairman, Honorable Alexander.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the Honorable Vice President, the Chief Minister, the Minister of Finance, other ministers present, deputy ministers, development partners, members of the diplomatic corps and consular corps, both controllers, civil society organizations, the press, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by thanking the Honourable Minister of Finance for inviting me to make a statement on the role of Parliament in the budget process in the expectations of community department and agencies for the 2024 budget process. Budget in democratic governance refers to the statement on government fiscal and economic policy measures relating to its annual revenue and expenditure decisions. The budget is the most potent instrument of government in carrying out its policy objectives. Parliament is the legislative arm of government, with the primordial function of approving the national budget and conducting oversight amongst other functions and provided for in section 93 to 96, sections 112, 113, and 114 of the 1991 Constitution of Sierra Leone. The Parliamentary Standing Orders 63 to 69, and the Public Financial Management Act of 2016. As representatives of the people, Parliament is the appropriate arm of government to ensure that the budget best match the nation's needs. Government to ensure that the budget match the nation's needs with the available resources. The role of Parliament is very critical, taking into consideration the current squeeze in fiscal space over economy is faced due to multiple shocks. The budget process has various stages, ranging from macro fiscal forecasts, budget preparations, approval, execution, and evaluation. Parliament is mainly involved in the approval process and oversight on the budget. Hence, the expectations of Parliament from MPs in the 2024 budget approval process include the following. The Minister of Finance should ensure presentation of the fiscal strategy statement, FSS, in accordance with section 41 of the Finance Act of 2020, which states that no later than the 10th month of every financial year, the minister shall, with the approval of cabinet, prepare and lay before Parliament for its information in FSS. 2. The Minister of Finance should engage with the Finance Committee on the amendment that will be made in the Finance Bill for FY 2024 before presentation to the House for debate in line with best practice. 3. The national budget with its accompanying documents should be presented to Parliament according with section 411 of the Finance Act of 2020, which states that the budget shall be laid before Parliament by the Minister no later than 6 weeks to the start of the financial year to which it relates. Please note that for any delay in compliance with this provision, we subject Parliament to huge pressure and limited time in scrutinizing and approving the budget. 4. The Minister of Finance is expected to comply with section 66, subsections 2 and 1, paragraphs A and B of the Public Financial Management Act of 2016, which says that the Minister of Finance shall submit to Parliament for this information quarterly statement of central government in respect of A, the actual revenue and expenditure of central government, B, an overview of progress in budget execution within the central government. 5. Parliament is quite aware of constraints with resources envelope, but kindly encourage the Minister of Finance to improve in the disbursement of approved allocations of NDAs. 6. All vote controllers and appropriate staff of NDAs are required to be present in the Chamber of Parliament during the budget debate in order to listen to decisions taken on proposals and policies affecting the NDAs. 7. All budgets of NDAs should be prepared in line with the Big 5 game changers and sustainable development goals SDGs. 8. All vote controllers of NDA are required to fully complete the sub-appropriation questionnaires and to be sent to them in greater details. Adding extra sheets where necessary. The questionnaire should be submitted at least 4 days before the hearings. 9. All vote controllers and provisional heads of NDAs are required by law to appear before the Parliamentary Committee of Supply in the open budget hearing to defend their heads of expenditure for the financial year 2022-2023 and proposals for 2024. 10. Maximum of 7 working days to be allocated for budget scrutiny, and all NDAs should ensure committee hearings are completed for public forums to achieve the President's goals in the new direction. I thank you for your attention.
Very much, Honorable Chairman of the Parliamentary Finance Committee, for laying out clearly the requirements that NDAs have to fulfill in the submission of budgets to Parliament. I think we also want to thank Parliament. They've already been magnanimous enough to give us some option to have new ministers, new stakeholders come in to have their own offices and readiness to ask for them to at least give us a week extra to submit the budgets for which they have accepted. So we thank Parliament for that. So we'll continue. Now I will invite the Honourable Minister, myself represented by the Deputy Minister of Planning and Economic Development, to give a statement on behalf of the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development.
Mr. Chairman, the Honorable Vice President, Chief Minister, Members of Parliament, colleagues, Ministers of Government, senior government officials, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to deliver this statement on behalf of the Minister of Planning and Economic Development, Madam Kenyan Bali, who is unavoidably absent. She would have loved to be here and participate in this policy hearing to share her thoughts on the public investment program as a critical component in the national budget and to highlight progress made so far in the development of the successor of the medium-term national development plan. The theme for this year's budget process: consolidating gains and accelerating transformation within the framework of the National Development Plan 2024 to 2028 did not come as a surprise. Noting gains we all made in the last 5 years, especially on human capital development, the theme is in sync with the government aspirations going forward. It signifies a stop, take, and consolidation of the significant gains we have made over the past 5 years as we forge a new medium-term transformative agenda. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we are all aware, the medium-term national development plan 2019 to 2023 comes to an end in December 2023. The success of plan 2024 to 2028, we are now thinking beyond this, will deeply reflect the big 5 game changers as an accelerated agenda towards our vision of achieving a middle income status for the country by 20.
And knows how to ask the right questions when he wants to get things done. So we are blessed as a nation to have a very pragmatic and young chief minister who is very reform-oriented and results-oriented to make sure things happen. So all these plans we are discussing here this morning, someone has to pilot it, someone has to make sure that the various sectors coordinate well to make sure it's achieved within this realistic time frame. So without much ado, I want to invite our very dynamic chief minister to set the agenda of our.
Thank you very much, Chairman, Honorable Vice President, Ministers, Members of Parliament, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Because we have a big file, I was thinking about 5 things, to stick with 5 these days. Very briefly, the first thing I wanted to speak about and why this is so important, in line with what the Chair said for coordination, collaboration and removing the bottleneck, is policy coherence. The link between the budget and the medium-term national development plan. These are integrated and integral, and if coordination doesn't exist between those, then nothing works, because the budget is derived from our ambitious medium-term national development plan, which is why I am a bit disappointed that colleagues from ministries have not responded to the request to submit sector papers. And just as I was coming, the Minister of Finance and the VP concurred that if you have not submitted that, you probably should not come to the budget hearing, because they're not going to give you money if you don't have a plan. So you have a week to finish what was due a while ago. Before you come to that bilateral meeting, you should have your sector plan, otherwise you gain out more money. So I do want to invite you to strongly encourage you to act on the request from the Ministry of Planning to submit your sector papers. It will be a precondition for successful budget discussions that you have. We are one government, and so policy coherence is really critical between MOPED and MOF, between planning and financing. Which brings me to the second point I wanted to make, which is on budget implementation support. We know that the challenge that I have to often mediate is that the thing that finance writes on paper doesn't reflect the paper that we receive in our accounts and the ministries, and it's important that we are able to support the Ministry of Finance on budget implementation. This is something I will assure my colleagues who are not in finance that we will work closely together to hold the Ministry of Finance on full budget implementation. And this has to be in mind, again, it's not just free with the annual work plans. The annual work plans are what are costed. And so if people have not completed their annual work plan updates from 2022, I know some of you haven't, 2023, government cannot be giving you money to do the same thing that you didn't do last year and you didn't do the year before. The question becomes, what are you using that money for? So we will hold you accountable for the implementation of your annual work plans. And the only way we know whether you've done your annual work plan is if you submit the report of your annual work plan. And ministers, permanent secretaries who know how to do that in the Pro. This will be important for the budget. Ministry of Finance is very much aware of these engagements, which is very much linked to the third point that I was going to make, which is how the budget process should drive efficiencies and innovation. The Ministry of Finance has been, over the last couple of years, pushing many innovative programs, many technology processes with revenue collection, but also just how we request tax forms. We encourage the Ministry of Finance to keep driving innovation. Money is what drives innovation. People follow money. And so we strongly encourage you to lead on the public sector reform agenda using financing, incentives, and digitization. The fourth point I wanted to make was our responsibility to support the Ministry of Finance. The chairman mentioned that it's not just about coming to the Ministry of Finance to give you money. And this is why in the ministerial performance tracker for ministries, there's a requirement now that every ministry should raise money. I know ministries like education say they have 120 million, and ministries like gender and children, they do have money. I think it's other ministries complaining, social welfare, they say they cannot raise money. But every ministry has a responsibility to raise money. There's a minimum requirement that we all have agreed to so that we can support the Ministry of Finance in those budget processes. And that will be in the ministerial performance matrix and tracker. Finally, the fifth point I wanted to speak to was on bottleneck removal and coordination. Now, a lot of the meetings that we have often is around just removing specific things. Some of them are small, some of them are big, but it often just requires that we're in the same room. So when we call meetings to be in the same room, it's so that we can sit across the table and say, so that we can align. And I do want to assure the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Planning that over this budget cycle implementation, we will continue to remove all bottlenecks. And finally, I want to use this opportunity to challenge the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Planning that I know when MOPED launched, when I was there, we launched this medium-term national development plan process, it was until 2028. It's great that it's 2028. But 2 years later, it's 2030. The SDGs go until 2030. I want to encourage MOPED and Ministry of Finance publicly and invite you to consider that these plans go to 2030. It's not very efficient from the state and for planning with our partners for us to do something that's short, that falls just 2 years short of something global that we have a responsibility for. And with that, I know that there is the SDG coordination, which is in MOPED and the Ministry of Finance. It is all of our responsibilities to ensure that this budget process is tied with the SDG 2030 goals, is tied with the medium-term national development plan. And once that is in line, you have my fullest support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your guidance, notes, policy coherence, budget implementation, support, efficiency and innovation, responsibility to support MOF, which he has re-echoed for what I mentioned earlier in my remarks, for ministries to contribute to revenue generation. Of course, removal of bottlenecks and coordination. The MOPED, I'm sure, yes, that's a valid point to note. If the NDP can be extended to 2030 so that we can align it to the SDG goals, that would be very, very good. So I believe all of these points are well noted as we go into work and actualizing these plans. So now we want to hear from the man of the moment, the man with the boss, the man who says yea and amen in terms of the resources to support MDs to achieve this big program agenda. And he's a very, committed minister and is very supportive, and he wants to make sure that his colleagues deliver as best as possible. So I want to hand over the floor now to the Honourable Minister of Finance, Mr. Sheikh Fansamani Babua, as he gives the keynote address. Also, as he highlights the priorities of the 2024 budget and how, as the ministry intends to finance and budgets for government as a whole. So over to you, Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, FS, Honorable Vice President, Chief Minister, colleague ministers, and deputy ministers of government, honorable members of parliament. Also appreciate the chairman of the Finance Committee in Parliament, development partners, civil society, members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Very pleased that you joined us this morning for the policy hearing. That's courtesies from my colleagues at the Ministry of Finance, all of you. The purpose of the policy hearing, you may agree, is for all of us as stakeholders in the budget process to sit every year in dialogue on the policies and reforms that will foster our intent to promote growth, economic growth, and improve the living standards of everyone living in Sierra Leone. And for 2024, in particular, we will focus on the implementation of programs and policies that will protect the vulnerable people in the midst of ongoing multiple crises, almost permanent shocks to economies globally. So the budget is the only tool, especially in the public sector, through which resources of the state can be distributed equitably to meet the needs of the people of the country at all levels. The policies and the reform agenda that we will be discussing today will shape the preparation of 2024 budget, which I will later present to Parliament for scrutiny and approval mid-November 2024. Because the budget deals with the allocation of financial resources of the state, a wide range of consultations must be undertaken. That's what gives credibility to the budget. And that consultation must involve both state and non-state actors. And they will help in shaping the proposals of government, both in terms of policies, but also projects that we intend to implement to provide for the needs of the people of the country. So it is against this background that the draft appropriation bill, which we provide every year, prepare every year, before it is laid in Parliament, submitted in Parliament, we will gazette it for a minimum of 2 weeks to allow for public scrutiny, public thoughts through it, and then provide feedback before to all the resources that we propose to allocate. So over the years, we have been focused on our policy hearings more on budgetary allocation and expenditures for the various sectors. This year, as you heard from previous speakers, including the FS, but also the Chief Minister, as he said, we want to strongly encourage all of us as stakeholders to now focus on implementing the priority programs and projects that we intend to deliver, especially in line with the Big Five. The Big Five, Game Changer, and the National Development Plans plan that is the Ministry of Planning is currently spearheading to prepare. The National Development Plan is a key instrument for us to be able to give comfort and confidence to all our partners, both public, international, multinational, and also private sector, on how we intend to drive the development aspirations of this country. So we encourage all of us, and it must be aligned. The budget here to speak from it. So as we start right now, the consultations are going on. We are inspired by your commitment to have something that can help us feed the current budget process that we have. Right, so I think that's clear. The optimism is there. If you don't provide, we don't know how to budget or program for you financially. Right, so that's really the issue. Now, let me just say this: the resource allocation for 2024 will be driven by the need to consolidate all ongoing policy commitments and the completion of priority infrastructure projects, as well as the implementation of the Big Five. That's the policy statement. And Honorable Vice President, Chief Minister, Foreign Ministers, MPs, vote controllers, and other stakeholders present here today. The focus of 2024 budget will be, like I said, to consolidate and build on the gains that we have made thus far in relation to education, health, energy, especially rural electrification, roads, security sector, governance. But the priority, as we know already, clearly expressed in the People's Manifesto, is on the big first changer on agriculture, feed salon specifically, human capital development, focus predominantly on interventions in education, free quality education in program in particular, health sector, you have the youth employment, you have revamping the public sector architecture, and then tech and infrastructure. Those are the 5 areas that we really want to drive the vision of excellence. And this is the right time to do it early enough in the second year. We will discourage from all MBAs to start any new projects when ongoing projects have not been completed. So that's a clear policy statement. In the same vein, procurement of goods and services that have posed a lot of fiscal challenges on the execution of the budget. We have. And what we want to do this time around, and the reason is simple. We have observed that to a large extent, procurement-related activities, they are not aligned with the budget. And what that does is create huge extra budgetary expenditures during the year. So the Ministry of Finance, therefore, will continue to implement a policy of not issuing any certificate of approval to MBAs to enter into contracts if there are no expressed adequate financial provisions in the budget of the MBA approved and appropriated. So it's not only the advance payment of the contract, but also all subsequent payments of the contract during the year or even over the medium time, if this is a multi-year contract. This is another clear policy statement. So the ministry aims to improve on the budget execution going forward by implementing what we call a broad system of allocation for non-contractual expenditure. And in that light, the MDAs are urged to submit a comprehensive summary of their contracts, contractual and non-contractual expenditure forecast to allow us to be able to assure you of predictable access to resources as actually advocated by the chairman of the Finance Committee in Parliament. Let me reiterate, government's topmost priority is now feed salary among the other initiatives. Of course, you know, the main objective here is to boost agriculture in order to promote inclusive growth, reduce hunger, boost export and create jobs. Of course, the minister will be shortly giving you detailed presentation on the vision of His Excellency to achieve that objective in the priorities. So to achieve this, from the perspective of the ministry, I did make some pronouncements yesterday at the roundtable, spearheaded by His Excellency through the Ministry of Agriculture. And I would want to re-emphasize them here in terms of our support to the agricultural sector and the feed salon initiative. The Ministry of Finance is committed to increase budget allocation to the Ministry of Agriculture. So in the medium term, government seeks to increase budget allocation to the agricultural sector to at least 10%. This will ensure other objectives are achieved, which will include increasing cultivation of rice, boosting investment in research, key value chains, establishing homegrown institutional feeding program. And the minister will expand deeply on this, but I'm just reiterating the commitment of the Ministry of Finance to the Feed Salon Initiative and establish at least 5 farm service and agribusiness centers. But to be able, the public sector may not be able to be the only source of driving success in this initiative. And so we will align other areas. We will explore innovative financing mechanisms, both from the public sector and the private sector, to support the Ministry of Agriculture in meeting the President's vision. First, we will establish an agricultural fund. And one means of supporting the fund, we will ensure that we introduce import duty on rice importation. The reason is very simple. There has been a clear misconception about this. The price of rice goes up even when there is zero tax on it. But what we do in this country is that we are spending $200 million to import rice into Sierra Leone. Basic understanding. You are actually supporting the farmer in another country. That's basically what it means. That $200 million can be invested into the farming system in Sierra Leone, and then you use the loans and the money doesn't go out to the professional. So we use the money there, and be able to do the agricultural fund clean and clear in this country. And we will issue from the Ministry of Finance very clear statutory standing order to ensure that that fund, without anybody touching it, is transferred from the Treasury into that special fund in the central bank, and utilize the fund, the intent and the policy and activities that are mapped out through agriculture. We will support the private sector to be able to ensure that they can mobilize capital to invest in this country. One of the major problems with private sector not being able to mobilize resources, even when they want to go into public-private partnership in agriculture. Agriculture is a private business. The minister will emphasize that. It is because they come to us, big funders who want to invest in this country, will come and say, we want to invest, but Ministry of Finance, you have to guarantee us. But we don't have an express credit guarantee scheme. Several other countries have import-export credit guarantee schemes. Whether it's in the UK, in every country, they do have. We don't have. So because we don't have, we have commitments with international partners that we must not encumber both the treasury, that is the budget, which relies only on taxes that are collected, neither should you encumber the reserves of the central bank. So, because you don't have what we call an express vehicle to support a guarantee scheme. So what we're doing as a nation, we are setting a special aim to be able to support private entities who want to invest in agriculture at scale. In that way, we know that this is a ring-fence sport purely from the government side, but to be able to ensure that we foster at scale private intervention in agriculture. So we're going to do this, we establish that scheme, and I think that's important. Now, we will ensure that we will support the Ministry of Agriculture to ensure that the enabling environment for private sector, attracting private sector intervention in agriculture is easy, and is done easily. What we mean by that, and I know you will expand on this as well, will ensure that the budget in several other sectors, the road sector, water sector, power sector, all of those must work with the Ministry of Agriculture to do it. So invest and develop our agroecologists. That's a clear pronouncement for the Minister of Agriculture that we must take away. Now, and this is basically to support this agro-industrial zone development. Finally, on the agricultural side, from a policy perspective, we don't do this alone. We have taken a policy decision that our multinational partners fund agriculture at scale. They are the main supporters of government at this stage. So what we are going to do is we encourage them that in the recalibration and the reallocation of their portfolio, emphasis is placed on agriculture. And even if you are spending in health, even if you are spending in road, energy, water systems and the like, they must be aligned with development in the agro-industrial ecologies. So we encourage our partners, our development partners, World Bank, ADB, EU, ISDB, and all of this by here and the like that are currently supporting our OFI, the like that are very active in the system, that their portfolio and their interventions have to be redirected as such. Meanwhile, we'll continue to support the Minister on ongoing interventions as he transitions into this space. And to that extent, all what he's been doing on policy shifts, we have full support for them. The e-voucher systems, the private sector interventions in input provision, but also the machinery provisions. We will support all of those. Now, to focus on kids alone does not indicate or undermine in any way our commitment to the consolidation or any distraction on our commitment on human capital development. No way. So we are going to keep investments on human capital development as it is, at that scale, at the minimum, and be innovative in fact in trying to ensure that we deliver more on it. But the government will continue to support, for example, the free quality education. And the Ministry of Finance will continue to work with the Ministry of Senior Secondary Education to ensure that expenditures on school feeding, school subsidies, exam fees, TLNs, learning materials, all those form a reliable data in order to ensure that we are efficient in the spending in the sector. And therefore, these budgets will continue to prioritize all free quality educational interventions, and will continue to encourage that all, like I said, will invest in data. There's a lot of work that has been going on in ensuring that we know the people that are in countries, but also the teachers that are in countries to inform the investment that we will do there. Only data will help you, otherwise then we are not efficient. The ministry will also collaborate with gender and children affairs. It's a core part of tribe. And from the budget side, we will continue to pilot gender sensitive or responsive budgets in 5 MDAs during the 2024 budget cycle. I know some of the NGOs were very vocal about this last year. We did make pronouncements, but the budget process didn't turn out to really clearly imbibe that we're ready to work with you on that. So in line with the progress we have made so far in developing the legal and policy framework to achieve gender equality, it's about time that the resources spent on the programs being implemented are gender sensitive, and that is taking the needs of both men and women into consideration when implementing government programs across all sectors. Gender responsive budgeting, you may all know, is an approach to budgets that use of fiscal policy and PFM instrument to promote gender equality. This reform will improve on the accountability by government entities for all gender mainstream to help to close the financing gap for all gender priorities and monitor the spending on gender-related policy and programs. I want to emphasize also youth fund. The commitment by His Excellency is to ensure that in the next 5 years, we're able to provide employment for 500,000 youths. Ambitious, but not insurmountable. And the way to do it is to create predictability around how you support youths. Youths are basically cross-cutting value and relevance across for the delivery of the value. So we will establish a youth fund as well. We'll think through how to effectively, it's the seed money that is required for it. And then from the seed money, you should be able to ensure that you pull resources from other partners who are very much invested in optimizing what they call the opportunities that are in youth population countries like ours. And so there are entities that we have been speaking to, UNDP is one, the African Development Bank is another, that are ready to provide resources into the fund once it is established. Now, Honorable Vice President, Chief Minister, Ministers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Finance will embark on several other initiatives that will support the big fund. But I will speak about, first before I come to climate, let me speak about tech and infrastructure shortly. For tech and infrastructure in particular, it is about time that we expand on the innovative approaches in funding infrastructure in the country. They use the word bankable project. Infrastructure most times are costly things, but they have big economics underneath them. They have big business components underneath them. The airport is an example. We did a PPP. When you do a PPP, it was not funded, it was off the budget of the government. It was funded by a private entity, the concession it, but it's a business. The government itself did not have investment ready to go to the market to raise the money. Another business person's balance sheet could be utilized to do what? Mobilize capital. As long as investing on infrastructure, as long as that infrastructure has a revenue stream to be able to pay back itself. Government will not be able to fail over years. And what we're going to do so we engineers and ensure that the DeFi is delivered. Extension on tech and infrastructure is to ensure that these innovative mechanisms that we have started doing already, and it's not only on the airport, we've done it on the highway leading to Mashaka. It's paying for itself and it's happening very quickly. We're doing it in the hospital, where people are paying the hospital pharmaceutical system. It's in the hands of the private sector, they're able to bring drugs and people are paying for it. We're going to be doing it on our roads. We're going to be doing it on the water system. We're going to be doing it in technology. And that's the approach. So what do? You don't suffocate the budget for capital spending because we've been doing what they call charity public investments. It's not sustainable. So we're thinking very deeply. People think that water should be free. Water cannot be free. It's the most valuable resource for human life. But we are not able to provide proper water in Freetown, for example, because we're doing it like a public good. It should go beyond that. People should be able to pay for water in the way that water is needed every morning. So that's the approach. So we're opening up this space as a government. Think innovatively, think out of the box at our charge. Think out of the box to ensure that tech and infrastructure is funded in a way that is not usual. So that you free up the pressure on the budget to the other things that are here on the budget. Now, there are many other innovative ways we have been thinking of funding. And I will speak to those quickly. The Ministry of Finance will embark on the developing policies aimed at attracting climate-related funds. We will continue to make efforts at mitigating the impact of climate change. We will support the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. We will support the National Disaster Management Agency in most of the work that they have started doing, tree planting, new tree planting, and I'll speak to this a little bit. We, the Ministry of Finance, will take the lead, working jointly with the Ministry of Environment to spearhead the mobilization of climate financing resources for the state. And I'll speak to this just briefly. One of our resources that I think is to be far much more beneficial than even diamonds and golds is our environment, which if you fly over Sierra Leone is green. All of it is green. We're not developed. We're green. We're only absorbing the development impact or effects of pollutants. Because of the way we have changed our laws, there are many private people who are coming into Sierra Leone right now, getting land and investing in climate financing opportunities, carbon credit development and trade. Now, the Ministry of Finance is taking that lead, working jointly with the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change to do what? Develop the policies, the regulations that will allow us to ensure that we are able to mobilize the climate finance resources to do what? To protect our environment, provide alternative livelihood, or able to generate the revenues that can support the treasury and the reserves. So that's the work that is ongoing. We are in sync with the IMF. The President has requested to get access to what they call the Resilience and Sustainability Trust Facility which is the IMF Climate Fund facility, and we are in the process of developing all what is needed to qualify to get access to it. Right? So I thought I should speak to that. And let me talk a little bit of the revenue measures that we keep. You all know that we've been working with the NRA in Parliament to introduce measures to broaden our tax base. Not only broaden our tax base, make our efforts at tax collection efficient by introducing digitization in a way and remove human hands from government money. That's what we digital tech into collecting excise, into collecting GST, into collecting corporate taxes. Right, so we'll dig in that going forward, and we encourage all to support NRA in their efforts at mobilizing revenues. We have developed a medium-term strategy, which is a call for revenue mobilization. We will engage the public, because I think one of the concerns by most of the public sector or the private sector is that we have not been very engaging when we're introducing tax measures year after year. So the medium-term strategy is an instrument to provide predictability of government intent at taxing the sector and allow us to go and engage in the dialogue to know and for them to be able to plan exactly how government policies will impact on their businesses. And then we will allow them to be able to rationalize our policies to ensure that our environment is good for doing business, but also they meet the other obligations that will allow us to be able to deliver on our intents in the budget. We did say other issues. Now, beyond just taxes, because I don't want to talk so much here now, beyond just taxes, I must share with you this. There are non-tax revenue measures, and I think most of the speakers have alluded to that. Non-tax revenue measures sit with other MPAs that are rendering services or are in custody of our resources. Mining, like I said, I'm talking about environment, can be fisheries, tourism, right? So all of these have got huge opportunities and potential for delivering the resources needed to transform the state. We've taken a very bold step to make a fundamental transformational change in the mining sector. The government passed an act last year, or this year, that will allow state participation in the mining sector as a state. Currently, as we have, it is private sector that is fully exploiting or mining in the mining sector, and we rely on royalty taxes to be able to support the budget. Well, we are allowing them, we respect the law to continue, but as a state, we too are taking interest in ensuring that what we know is there, we engage in a very structured way in working in sync, joint venture with the private sector to do what? Mobilize or harness the resources to support our budget. I thought it's important to do this, and the government will provide the seed money to support the structural state participation in the mining sector beginning from the next year project. Vice President, Honourable Vice President, Chief Minister, the management of the well-being will also be a priority on the expenditure side, and the government will focus on implementing reforms that will bring the wage bill to a sustainable level. We're currently developing a wage bill strategy, and once that is completed, the strategy will inform or guide all payroll reforms going forward. And also, by the wage bill compensation, the Wages and Compensation Commission will be operationalized as an act that has been passed in Parliament that establishes the commission. We think the commission must go into full action. Wages are distorted in the country. The commission has the responsibility to ensure that it is rationalized and aligned. And they will be involved in developing all the regulations and guidelines that will support that process. Finally, I want to encourage all MPAs to take part in the bilateral budget discussion starting on Monday, the 9th. We are at the level of the Ministry of Finance. We'll have high-level participation by ministers. That's what we encourage. directors, board controllers, this high level involvement in terms of discussing your strategies, your plan, your budget for the next 3 years, and what can be delivered within the first year. And that can be carried on in the next year. So we'll encourage you all, please attend the bilateral discussion starting next week. It's important to guide and agree on the priorities of the project and program, especially those that will be completed in the current year. If they are not to be completed in the current year, we can factor them into the next year. MDAs are therefore advised to come along with an updated report or presentation on all ongoing projects and contracts, whether donor funded or government funded, showing clear timelines for their completion of such projects and contracts, and the amount needed to complete them this year or next year. Once again, let me thank you all for attending, very well attended policy hearing, and wish you all a fruitful engagement in the entire voluntary process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I think it was like the first lecture in the postgraduate class. I believe if we all take an exam on the 2024 budget policies, we will come out with an A right now, because that's my minister. He's very granular. He explains things in detail and tries to make people understand the idea and the policies and how we can all participate. It's very, very convincing. That's a good answer for him. So I think what he has done, he has laid out. I mean, even without him now taking this budget to Parliament, you now know exactly what the 2024 budget will speak to and what these policies will actually be addressing in the sector. I think that's very good. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. So we'll continue the program, which is a very, very important segment now of the program. We've had the Honorable Vice President, who has been very, very supportive to the budget process over the years. I believe from 2018 to date, every year, he's been with us, setting the agenda, and he has prioritized preparation and formulation as part of his own annual work program. So every year when we call on him, that he should come, he will not say no, you know what, I've done it last year, you guys do it this year. But he's always ready and willing to come and give us the political backing, because the budget itself is a political tool. So if you don't have the political will to implement it, you will do all the technical work, but when it comes to implementation, it will fail. But when you have somebody no less than the Vice President to give the political will of all these technical things that have been said here, for them to materialize, we need when MDs or other stakeholders refuse to implement policies. We want people to complain. We can work somewhere that will listen to us and will tell those people to cooperate. And so that's the role of the Vice President. That's what he has been doing for us over the years. So ladies and gentlemen, without wasting one time, I want all of us to stand up to our feet as we welcome the Honorable Vice President as he gives the keynote address for the 2024 policy year. Thank you very much. Kindly sit down, please.
Thank you very much, Financial Secretary. I am very happy that you made a very good distinction between the political vision of the budget and the technical vision. What I'm going to do here today is not to follow the footsteps of the minister. I'm going to give a political interpretation and understanding of the budget. The minister has done the technical part. I'm going to give you what His Excellency wants and how His Excellency sees the budget. First of all, let me thank the Minister of Finance for this, and also thank the Chief Minister for this very important session. This is a very, very important session in the budgetary process. Like the Minister said, this policy hearing is a very important tool because it allows us to dialogue, to discuss, to engage, to shape and guide the discourse on how we are going to develop policies and how we are going to finance those programs. So, Honorable Minister, thank you for keeping the steam since 2018. This has been a tradition and we intend to continue this tradition. Today, let me first of all say another big thank you to the Minister and the entire Ministry, because it is refreshing to hear that the financial budget for 2024 will build on the gains of the first term of His Excellency. You know, the first term, His Excellency came with a vision, human capital development vision, and we realized that we made fantastic gains in the area of education, health, you name it. On education, I'm very much happy that the Ministry is going to keep the commitment of the progressive 15% increment for teachers. So by 2025, we aim to meet the 45% that was promised to teachers. Of course, we don't need to reiterate the gains we have made in that sector, but it has been very, very phenomenal, and we stand out today as a global champion, and His Excellency is no doubt to continue to occupy international fora, you know, to talk about education and how we can shape the development of smaller countries like Sierra Leone. We also learned that this year, about 137,900 kids pass the WASC and they are qualified to go to university. What does that mean? It means we have to also position higher and technical education to be able to tap into the beneficiaries of free quality education. For you to take additional 137,900 kids into those institutions will require three things. One, investment in infrastructure for additional classrooms, investment in additional lecturers, and then investment in providing enabling learning and teaching environment for those kids, including research. So, Honorable Minister, I would also want to draw your attention to that. But this is something we discussed in the last cabinet meeting. And like the Chief Minister said in that cabinet meeting, we look forward to a cabinet paper that is grounded on how we can shape sustainable financing for higher and technical education if we want to maintain the balance between the gains we made in basic education and the future of education in this country. On the health, Honorable Minister, since 2018, we know when we came in, we progressively increased the health budgetary allocation from 5%, we moved up to 11.37%. But in 2023, it was brought down to 10.2. So I would really encourage that we get back to at least 11% for health. And also to strengthen project execution in the respective ministries. We have to look at critical sectors, really should not be delayed. That is education, health, and agriculture, because they are time bound. Because in the health sector, you have 24/7 services. So if you delay a quarter allocation, it is definitely going to impact on health delivery, particularly given the kind of emergencies we deal with in the health sector. I'm very happy that you made a commitment to keep that. But if we can move from 10.2% to 11%, you know we still have this, the Abuja Declaration commitment, that is 15% of every sub-Saharan African country. That should dedicate 15% of GDP to health. 11% is reasonable because over the years, as a result of that 11%, we have been able to recruit additional 6,000 health workers. We have been able to expand healthcare services, buy new equipment, expand Medicare unit, develop high dependency unit in maternal homes, which have saved lives, no doubt. So I will argue for that. On energy, I thank you very much for making mention of the 7 district electrification project. You know, that is a commitment of, because we all know how energy can transform those local economies, and also additional investment in the off-grid power solution that have helped most of these small communities to be able to develop small-scale economies that have allowed businesses to grow. So I'm very much happy that you made a commitment to that. Of course, you just spoke about job creation, and we'll come to that under the Big 5. and agriculture, the policy shift. Even before the Big Five, we had a policy shift in the Ministry of Agriculture. And in 2022, we were able to register 22% of domestic food production. I'm happy that the Big Five is there, but we're going to talk about that in detail. Of course, I also want to thank you for the investment you made over the years in the governance sector, particularly for elections. We were able to finance our own elections. I want to thank the ministry for that and your continued support to the justice sector. The justice sector is very, very critical, particularly if we want to promote investment in this country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today we are here to initiate discussions on the next 5 years, which means how do we build a bridge between our investment in human capital, development, and the big five. We have to build a bridge because we invested in the social sector. Now we are moving towards an investment strategy that will shape the future development, particularly of this country. The flagship program for the next 5 years is Feed Salon. And the reason being, His Excellency yesterday in his statement clearly articulated the importance of that flagship program. One is food security, that no country can claim to be independent if they cannot feed themselves. So, of course, we know over the years we have been food dependent from outside. We spent about $200 million to import rice to this country, about $40 million to import onions, maybe over $160 million of flour alone. So investing in agriculture will help us to reduce dependency from outside, and then at the end of the day, we are able to do import substitution, like the Minister of Agriculture said yesterday. That will allow us to save money. Equally, the vision behind it is job creation. There is no better sector in this country and in small-scale economies that has promise for job creation other than agriculture. But normally when we tell people that agriculture is the future for job creation, they think we want to turn everybody to farmers. Not necessarily. Because in agriculture, you have agriculture, you have processing, you have transformation, you have logistics, you have digitalization. So it's a value chain from planting to processing to transport to market. So all of this value chain has enormous potential for job creation. That is why we are moving on it. And then also it's for cheap labor. And one of the reasons that was given a couple of years ago when I attended the social science conference in Europe is that why most investment companies, big companies, go all the way from America and Europe to Asia is relatively because food is very cheap. When you have cheap food, labor is going to be cheap. Because when you pay people, even if the salary scale is very small, they will be able to feed themselves and their families. So cheap food has a direct impact on cheap labor, and cheap labor has got direct impact on investment and economic growth. So I think Feed Salon is also seen in that light. But more importantly, it's going to stimulate growth. So this is a flagship program. I'm very happy that you made mention of that. That is a flagship program of His Excellency. And what do we want to see? Like you said, in the next 5 years, we want to see progressive increase in the budgetary allocation to the agricultural sector, up to 10%. We also want to make that sector to attract financing options, which means we are not only going to depend on government. Government is going to support the enablers. But we create a situation where there will be massive private sector investment in that. I'm very happy, Honorable Minister, you made mention about that. You also made mention about the guarantee scheme that will enable private people to lend money, but also to focus on sectoral financing. In this country, every lending in the banks is 20%. we have to get a regulation to allow people who invest in agriculture to pay less interest, so that at least 10%. So if you learn to go and import, it's different from when you learn to invest in agriculture. These are regulations that I think the government will be ready to support. Equally, the second point, human capital development, I don't need to go over that. We already made a commitment that we will build on the gains. Please keep it below pocket 11% for the health sector. Job creation. Job creation, you know, His Excellency in his manifesto clearly said that 500,000 jobs in the next 5 years. And already the government is working towards an national job creation strategy, because we want to build a bridge between, like I said, between the investment, the human capital development, and the economic growth of this country. In 2021, in this country, there were 241,000 estimated live births. In 2023, it is 304,725. So there has been 26% increment in the last 1 year. 26%. 2021 is about 241,000. 2023, the estimated live birth 304,725. What does that mean? It means if you have a country of a 7 million population, we are every year they give birth to about 305,000 kids, and we offer them free foundational learning, free primary school, free secondary school. In the next couple of years, we are going to get nearly 500,000 and more kids in higher and technical education. That means when they come out, they will require a job. That is why job creation is paramount to the big five. If we want to keep the life, the hope of people, because the investment we are making in the human capital development, we have this budget is about a bridge building budget. How do we help us to build a bridge to the future in terms of job creation, in terms of feeding the nation, in terms of cheap food? So that is just to give you the statistics that if you take that target as 26% increment, you can imagine in 2025, we don't know the statistics yet for 2023. So every year we give you that statistics in public, so that you know that these are the numbers of Sierra Leoneans we are adding to the population dynamics, and we need to position ourselves to cater for them. So we are going to invest in skills training, but more importantly, like I said, to support the enablers. This explains why the national job creation strategy is capital, it is important, and in November, His Excellency will be launching that strategy that will going to give us shape how this government is going to support job creation in the next couple of years. Revamping the public service. Already the idea is to position the public sector to deliver on government policies and programs, which means to modernize it. And it is a way of making the public sector a little bit active, a little bit prone to technology use, to be able to modernize it, to be able to deliver on government programs. That is the idea. And more importantly is to make the public sector competitive and attractive. That is why the wages and commission is going to work with the promote welfare of public sector workers, so that at the end of the day, we look after them, both in terms of improving their conditions of service and also providing additional trainings to position them to be at pace with our thinking and vision. On technology and infrastructure, Honorable Minister of Finance, I want to thank you very much for the investment you have highlighted in technology and innovation to support digitalization. Of course, that can also help government coordination, like the Chief Minister said, it will help government coordination, so that when we improve our coordination, we are able to reduce the cost of business transaction. On energy infrastructure, You know, when we took over in 2018, the energy access in this country was 6%. Today we are over 35%. We have three big challenges in the energy sector, and I'm happy that you spoke to those ones. One is generation. Although we have increased generation, it will interest you to know that in this country the demand for electricity has doubled. For example, if you take the western area alone, what we call suppressed need is nearly 150 megawatt, meaning that you need 150 megawatt to support the entire western area. Today, the big need of the western area in terms of electricity is over 85%. When we came in 2018, the big need was between 50 and 52%. Today we are able to support the western area with a big need. We are able to evacuate about 85 megawatts of electricity. So we have increased electricity evacuation from 2018 to now by over nearly 35 megawatts. But what we intend to do right now, we are working on the transmission lines, the distribution lines. We are trying to modernize them around the eastern axis and also around the peninsula. When we do that, it will allow us to be able to evacuate about 120 megawatts of data, which means we will have increased by over 50% the peak demand. So we are working on that. So, Honorable Minister, I want to encourage you to continue to support those projects for the modernization of the transmission line in the western area, because additional electricity means additional businesses means additional jobs and additional increase in revenue. So I want to thank you very much that you made a commitment to that. But additionally, we want to call on the Ministry of Energy to improve the governance of the sector. Because it is one thing to improve, to invest in generation, to invest in transmission and distribution, and to be able to evacuate about 120 megawatts. But the uptake must be very important, particularly at the time that we are reducing public expenditure to particular sectors. The energy sector should be able to break even. They should be able to break even, which means we cannot be spending money in the energy sector like we are spending in health and education. So they should focus on improving the governance so that at least at the end of the day they are able to collect back the cost for that energy that's being evacuated. I think, Honorable Ministers, I will just give you 4 concerns that I have. I will share them with you so that you take them. 1, I take note of the fact that we want to increase revenue, domestic revenue by 20%, which is a very good idea. But I want to also underline the fact that increasing 20% revenue does not mean additional taxes. It means also innovative way of looking for areas not to tax the existing businesses and then suffocate them so that at least is to review the tax regime so that at least at the end of the day, increasing revenue means also increasing government efficiency in the expenditure. I know that you also made mention that you want to reduce government expenditure by tax to 25%. I hope that one will not touch those very essential sectors like health, education, and agriculture. In agriculture, we are going to 10%. But more importantly, let that increase from 30 to what reduction means. Equally, the other point I want to draw your attention to is I very much like the idea when I think the financial section was talking about if you improve on the allocation and management and governance of building permits, alone that is sufficient to pay public sector workers. I think reducing government public expenditure by 30 to 25%, side by side with thinking of how to help those very sectors that have potential for revenue generation. You can invest in building that architecture to support them to increase revenue. I've always spoken about the tax regime. Also is to support private sector growth. Support private sector growth. They are critical to driving the economy. I think there's a need now for a big round table, especially when you made mention that you are going to increase, that you are going to tax rice, GST on rice. It would be good to have a round table with all these investors, private sector, and see how government can help them so that the business environment can be competitive for them, while at the same time they can make. So I want to draw your attention to just two things. If you take the pricing formula, if you take the price today for rice in the sub-Saharan African country, in Nigeria today, in Guinea, the retail price for rice is $30. In Sierra Leone, it is $32. In Nigeria, it is $37. But in Sierra Leone, we need to develop a pricing formula for rice and flour. Because if you don't have a pricing formula, if you increase any tax in those items, they will be transferred automatically to the consumer. So those businessmen will not care whether. So when you have a pricing formula, then you are able to distribute the 1%. You can tell the businessman that, okay, you are able to assert the profit margin of the business. So when you assert the profit margin, it gives you an opportunity to renegotiate. You can say, for example, government can take 20% of the 1%. The people in Wataki can sacrifice 20% of the 1%. And then the businessman can take 40% or 60%. But if you don't develop a pricing formula and you just put an umbrella 1% on those commodities, the rest assured that the poor people in the market will pay for that 1%. And we don't want to see that. You know, so the idea is to have it. The idea is to have a roundtable dialogue on that, and I think the Ministry of Trade will be helpful with that. That pricing formula will allow you so that any increase, you know where it is going to be leveled and where it is going to come from. Or else, if you don't have that dialogue and develop that mechanism, believe me, it is going to be additional exploitation. You know, so that is just one advice I want to give in that direction. That brings me down to the very important need for the stabilization of commodity prices. Commodity prices. And the pricing formula is also going to help you to stabilize commodity prices. So that at least major commodities like flour, like rice, like cement, like oil, like onion, no businessman just get up in the morning and increase price unilaterally. Let there be a mechanism for a dialogue on how to increase commodity prices. If it is foreign currency, the problem, then government can help you to get foreign currency. But you just wake up today, you are selling rice, you say from 670 to 690. Particularly those commodities, please focus the Ministry of Trade and Finance on the stabilization of the price of those commodities. It includes a dialogue, it includes building an architecture that will determine how those prices, like we are doing for petroleum products. So we need to work on that. It is very, very important. Of course, I'm not going to touch on the foreign currency, the dollar. This is something we have been discussing. I want to thank you for the measures we are putting in place, because all this is very linked to the price of those commodities. More importantly, I want to end up. You see, like you said, budget, you can only give what you have. If you don't have money, how can you give money? If you don't get money, you don't get to eat your money. Because you don't make the money, you keep telling you went to the factory and say, I can't put my dollar pay for my job, money don't get to eat. And they pray for them, and they say, why they can't. So you have to have money to give money. And to have money is to create a competitive environment of private sector to grow and businesses to grow. So we have to sit down and think critically about the obstacles of of doing business in this country. We have been talking, but that is still a problem. The port is still a problem. Because that is what drives the economy. But when people do more business, they are able to pay more taxes. They are able to create additional jobs, and those people will be paying taxes as well. So how do we drive the economy? Those obstacles to doing business in this country. And we also need to tell the respective ministries that how they treat investors, how they treat business people that come to these ministries is capital to the growth of the economy. Sometimes these ministries, you send an investor here, the investor will spend 4 or 5 days, there will be nothing. That is why we are talking about efficiency. Efficiency in itself, the more efficient you are, the more economically viable you are. So when you slow down, these ministries are slow down, all these agreements, all these investors, all these things, you slow down the economy of the country. And at the end of the day, you come to Minister of Finance and ask for additional money. If you don't have money, you cannot give money. So you have to help the ministry to make money. And to help the ministry to make money is those individual efficiency. I'm very happy that the Chief Minister made it categorically clear. If you don't have a sector plan, can they give you money? Who is going to develop the sector plan for you? So we are calling for efficiency. Efficiency within those ministries. Efficiency has got a price. So, Honorable Minister, thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to also supporting the office of the Vice President.
So raise revenue, reduce expenditure, but they say do it cautiously, well targeted, and make sure it doesn't affect the vulnerable. So it means a lot of thought has to be given as to how we're going to shape these policies when it comes to implementation. So we have a balance. That's the political economy. Thank you very much, Honorable Vice President. We appreciate all those guys, so we are showing you. So now we are here to listen to kids and we now all know the importance of this program is going to guide the budget for the next 3 to 5 years. And we want to make sure that this agenda succeeds because the interest of all of us, all citizens. So we also have a very young and dynamic Minister of Agriculture and Food Security who has been given this very, very serious task to drive this agenda of fixed salary. And we want it to succeed, we want the ministry to succeed. The Minister of Finance has laid out strategies on how we can bring out innovative finances to support this program. But we need to understand the program itself. So we are going to take the seat here and then allow him to do a quick presentation on the fixed salary, after which we will ask questions and clarification. So I'll now invite the Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Musa Kaka, to make the presentation of fixed salary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Honorable Vice President, Chief Minister, Minister of Finance, colleague ministers, the Secretary to Cabinet, Secretary to Vice President, members of Parliament, the Chairman, Parliamentary Committee on Finance, board controllers, civil society, the hard-working men and women of the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Agriculture. Good morning. Let me, please allow me to start this presentation with some charts and numbers to motivate why and how some of the plans were put in place for the next 5 years. I'll pause. So we've all by now are quite familiar with all the news headlines in the past 2 years now, at least, or if not 3, has been about global price increases for various. This is what the picture looks like. For all sorts of commodities we've got prices going up. Primarily due to the COVID crisis, the war, the conflict in Ukraine. Sierra Leone, the people will tell you, we've got lots of people hungry, and food inflation actually is driving the national inflation rate.
Can we have the code, please?
So on the one hand, we've got prices in the world going up. On the other, we've got Sierra Leone, where a lot of what we consume we import. So here's just a snapshot. We've already seen and heard close to $200 million on rice. Actually, on food, we import about $500 million. And I was shocked by this in the last 3 years. On onions, $34 million. On frozen chicken, $60 million. On eggs, $13 million. So if we've got prices going up and all we have to is buy from the world, then obviously we're not going to have money to feed ourselves. At the same time, for the longest time, let's just say since 2010, the growth in the agriculture sector has been very slow. Now in 2021. And we've got about, it's contributing to the GDP about, these are all World Bank numbers. I just literally cut and pasted here for us to see. These are numbers that Ministry of Finance knows very well. 57% to GDP. By the way, that's not for us to celebrate, because what we really want is to reduce some of that number, increase manufacturing, as countries that are doing well at increasing livelihood for people are doing. Next slide. So we've got all of that, and we've got tremendous potential, where we've got 5.4 million hectares of land, we've got a youthful population, and we can't feed ourselves. And so it's only fitting that His Excellency the President has decided for the next 5 years that feeding ourselves is a priority that we must take on. And yesterday he was even more clear on that. He says Sierra Leone should have no business importing food that we can grow here and eat. Because if we can feed ourselves, we can solve a lot of the problems, as the Honorable Vice President just said. We can attract investment, we can solve a lot of the problems that we have. So I'm delighted to be here this morning at the policy hearing, because it's part of the process. It's a priority. They say, show me your money and I will show you what your priorities are. And for the Ministry of Agriculture to be the beginning of this policy hearing, and for the pronouncements that the Minister of Finance has already made, it means the government and the Minister of Finance is working very hard to make sure His Excellency's pronouncement and our effort to be food sovereign is not a farce. It's something that we mean to do, it's something that we put a plan towards to achieve. So the plan we put forward essentially tries to address these challenges that I just highlighted. And it's one that builds on work that we had already done in the past 5 years. The Honorable Vice President already mentioned that even before this feed salon program, we had the policy shift. What we did then was to make sure we cleared the way for the private sector to operate more effectively in areas like providing input, in areas like credit funds. And so very specifically, there are about 5 strategic objectives we have in the feed salon program. We want to be very intentional, those things that we just named. We want to reduce importation of rice. importation of onions, poultry products, eggs and chicken. We will increase export earnings, cocoa, oil palm. We want to create jobs. We need to youth and women. We need to revitalize the economies in rural areas. Hunger and malnutrition. 1.2 million people deemed acutely food insecure by the WFP. We would like to have that by the time, at least by the time we're done with this program. And of course, we've got climate change. We have to adapt. We have to feed ourselves now, make plans, and make sure the people, the children, and our great-grandchildren coming after us can do the same. We've got specific targets on each of these, and we're targeting specific value chains for each of these. And we will not do everything everywhere. We will find ecologies where it's suitable to do rice, where it's suitable to do livestock, where we know if you do vegetables, it's closer to market, you can bring it. Where that will be the approach that we will take in the Feed Talon program. Next slide. The program itself it's built on. For each of these, we will develop specific initiatives, and I'll give examples on the next slide. But crucial for us. Same for inputs like fertilizer. It's very costly. That's vast majority, maybe 80%. And a lot of them are doing maybe 1 acre. If you are able to increase their productivity, if you're able to aggregate what they produce, that alone takes us very far. And so we will focus on that as well. And market linkages are so key, and I'll elaborate, which links us to the infrastructure. But we need to set up systems to be able to demand pool for what farmers are producing. Agriculture finance. Finance is so key. Everywhere people farming is not cheap for the most part. If you really want to do it as business, you need capital, and that's often a major bottleneck. So we'll address that. We will use technology to both reach farmers, to collect information for farmers, to aid us make decisions, but to also address climate change risk. And of course, women and youth will be key and central to what we do. 500,000 jobs in 5 years, we think we can get a lot of that from agriculture. So here are some of the, under each of those pillars, some of the signature initiatives that we would like to pilot. About 73,000 hectares of land in IVS and Boli areas. I just mentioned 30,000 irrigation, 30,000 hectares for irrigation. By the way, some of these we have monies for. For example, we have monies now for about 9,000 hectares for irrigation. We would like to increase the coverage of tractors in the country. For seeds and input system, I think our research system is so key. We've got very smart people, we've got Jala University, we've got people that if we create the right incentives, can do research, can inform and produce outputs that inform the activities and policies. We will not shy away from using technology, so hybrid seeds, I think we'll use them with the appropriate caution and planning so that we're not dependent on buying these externally. For cash crops, I think part of it is to rejuvenate. Some of the trees are quite old. We would like to renew these and refresh them. We will focus on the organic aspect, especially for cocoa. I think Sierra Leone is doing very well in terms of sales and promotion of organic cocoa. I think part of our effort will be to try to expand and scale that. Under aggregation, processing and marketing, I think institutional feeding, I've got numbers in a few slides down, I think will be very key for us. I think homegrown school feeding, homegrown feeding of the police, the military, and we're already in conversation on this. I think those will be catalytic drivers for production. We'll embark on those. Infrastructure, I think we all know access to markets. If Tomabo Miss, I've gone there now a few times. It's beautiful, ecology is nice, but going there is investor. It's a massive credit guarantee scheme. I think they are the main driving objective is really to have the private sector involved in agriculture. We have experimented. One of the key things we did over 2 years ago was the $10 million credit facility that we set up. Uptake was low, but it was because it's very targeted to seeds and fertilizer for rice. But the people that took it paid all. So from my point of view, that's a good thing. It's not every day people go to banks and take credit and pay back everything on time. This is a good credit. It was at 7%. We would hope to do that again. Digitalization. I think there's enormous benefits that come from making sure we have registered our farmers in a digital way. We know what they're producing, where they're producing. Extension services, I think also that now in the age of technology, the Youth Agripreneurship Fund is one thing that we want to try. We tried the Youth Chiefdom Farms last time around. We will do those, but this time what we want to do, based on what we learned, is we would encourage the young people themselves to tell us what they want to do, develop business plans, and have them access finance. It's only then can they do it more seriously. Can they take it as a job for themselves? Next slide. Just an example of the approach, this ecology and building infrastructure. These are just for rice. I think what we plan to do is for each of these main value chains, we will find clusters. And in these clusters, we will identify critical infrastructure. For example, for rice, these are some of the areas. I think we're not going to do, we know everywhere rice grows, but to be able to be efficient at monitoring and deploying our resources, we would identify the areas with the biggest bang for our buck. And in those areas, we would identify those critical infrastructure like the roads leading to them, the energy needs. And we cost, it's not cheap to do agriculture, they're actually not cheap at all. And for 2024, we estimate we need about 250 million. Agriculture is one of those places that indeed does get a lot of fund and support from partners. And already, we've got about 140 million to be able to deploy to some of these things. So I am very heartened by the Honorable Minister of Finance's commitment for the 10% in the medium term. And I'm looking forward to see what we get in 2024. But we know, and we've all been talking, I think times are hard, and there's already been prior commitments where we've made gains and that we must sustain. So we understand that. And we also know, even when we put all these monies together, both what government can do, what the development partners can do, you see that we're not doing too bad actually. What we must do is attract some of these into the agriculture sector. If we do that, we think we can close some of this gap. And it's some of the things that the Minister of Finance was talking about that will help do that. Next slide. The voice and advocacy of the leadership, that's His Excellency the President, the Vice President. These are the tools that we've got. We're constrained with resources in many ways, but with policy, we want to go very hard and make sure whatever innovative policy we can drive to push to make change, we will do. So I want to motivate some of the policies that we want to do by this chart. This is coming straight from the Ministry of Finance's data from them. There's a budget line item called diet. Over the 5 years, you can see the numbers there. This is in 1,000 leones, 1,000 new leones. This is mostly rice that is bought for these institutions. It's 1.38 million new leones over this period. This is rice. This is, you know that 500 million that we say we spend on food. This one, at the country imports. This one is money that government removes from its pocket to buy and import. So part of what we want to do is to see how some of this can be produced here. Look, next slide. How we can produce here and feed. And so as I said, policy and smart policy is going to be key. And with attracting private sector, with having the right sort of investment, our landlords, I think we need to think about them. We need to think about how are they enabling investments in agriculture, both for large and small, for local and international. I just mentioned that I engaged all the rice importers not too long ago, together with the Minister of Trade. part of our goal, in most of the countries that have succeeded in actually being rice self-sufficient and exporting, they have engaged the people that were already in the sector importing. And part of our goal will be, and this is where I think the policy dialogue, that roundtable that the Vice President mentioned, from the Minister of Agriculture's point of view, we would like these rice importers to participate in producing. We would like to hold the fact that they haven't paid duties for a while as a bargaining chip and see how much they can do. We've started those conversations, but I'm glad the Honorable Vice President has encouraged a broader engagement on this, because I think it's so key for us on this particular one. And I just showed the price, the data on the rice that we import for all these institutions. I think the credit guarantee scheme is going to be so key for attracting investment that the Minister of Finance has just mentioned. I think that would really help private sector come here, know that when they invest, that government will be able to show up their investment in the unforeseen risk that may occur. We are in the process of doing this with the African Development Bank through the compact process, where they will put money and try to see for some of these big ticket items that are bankable, for us to be able to guarantee and de-risk their investment in that space. Our work through the National Investment Board should really focus on promoting food systems in agriculture. I think the issue of not having money, and so you can't spend money in agriculture, this is a growth sector. If you invest, we're not going to grow by not doing anything. We are going to have to choose that we will invest in some places and set targets that if we invest, we will get these goals in our growth projections. If we don't do that, we will coast. Agriculture is one of those places where we can sit down and say, we want to achieve 2% growth annually. It's very small. We want to achieve more. These are the investments we identify to do that. Through the private sector, through what government can do to facilitate that investment. Next slide. Partnership will be key, as I just mentioned. Coherence across MDAs. I think what we do, in fact, Feed Salon is not actually just about Ministry of Agriculture. It's the food systems and all the agencies and regulatory bodies that are associated with it. So it's roads, it's energy, it's nutrition, it's all these. So we need and policies that Ministry of Finance and Trade promotes. These are all things that hinder whether specific value chains will take off or not. And so coherence in all of these areas are key. The NGOs, civil society, development partners, and international financial institutions are all key to what we want to do. And of course, the private sector with all those policies that we just mentioned, with farmers at the center of it. Next slide. There's a lot of work that has gone into this. For each of these pillars, we will develop specific initiatives that will then hit the ground running with by 2024. We've consulted, we've talked to some MDs, we've gone in the field, development partners, private sector, that has fed and led into what we have in this. I want to thank you very much, and I really welcome your suggestions, comments, and how we can move this forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister of Agriculture. Okay, we can take our seats again. So now we want to open up quickly. Okay. Let's rise to our seats as we excuse the Vice President and the Chief Minister to leave us. Then we go to continue discussion. Thank you. Please don't. They are just going out. We'll continue discussion, please. Thank you. Okay, let's have our seats. So quickly, we've done. Let's sit, please.
Don't worry. Yeah. Sure.
Can we sit down over there so we continue quickly? Okay, we want to have a quick session for interaction based on the presentation that we had. We've done well with time management, even though we started 1 hour 30 minutes late. I think we want to carry the rest of our very short, succinct, and clear. We want to open for seven maximum interventions. 7. And because of the Giving Act, we still give opportunity for at least 2 women to ask questions. So that will be 30%. So the budget is small. So 7, but I will give opportunity to at least 2 women. So we'll ask all the questions which the Minister of Agriculture knows, and then they respond, and then they have any technical team they are all ready to support. So I'll start. Can somebody help us to move the mic up? Can you do that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Abubakar. I work for the World General Network. My own is an input instead of a question. And we have to do it. In all of this plan, the role of transparency and accountability. And I saw the brilliant initiative by the Minister of Agriculture. And I think we need to deliberately embed transparency and accountability. Don't give me as an example. The last one is when government piloted the money in my back carrier. We all saw what happened. The project was not implemented. Only you even ask the implementers to actually fund resources. So my emphasis here is the aspect of emphasis on transparency and accountability. Lastly, just to add to what the Vice President said around the proposal on the tax for VAT. And I think the Minister of Agriculture was very successful in terms of how much they want to reduce import of rice on a yearly basis. And I think if we're also proposing taxes, we should look at the other aspects in terms of how much is being reduced. But taking off right now when things are not up, they will not, don't think as bad. It's really important for now. Thank you. No, the minister highlighted that they want to use importation of rice like 5% every year. So if there's going to be a tax policy, they should also consider that one. If the government is reducing the subsidy, there should be a tax rate in which we are making progress to increase productivity.
Thank you very much. So with us from me, I work for Export Times newspaper. I have 2 questions. One question for the Minister of Agriculture. Engaging the community and farmers, how will the agriculture ministry involve at times they themselves contribute to immensely in decision making because most of them are asking for
the land and other agricultural inputs through a baseline survey. Then the resources you have are what you are interested. And it's in that vein that we, Statistics Review, are collaborating with your ministry. Yes, in implementing the current surveys on agriculture, for which
we are going to stop all importation of rice. Which they had done some production, and that was what they did. So we saw lessons around that, right? So we're learning from other places. I will engage the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to look at this fund that you mentioned. Just going down the list. Post-harvest, post-planting. You know, yes, I asked my team to brief me. Very delighted by that. Because I buy your idea that before we do anything, we must have a baseline. This strategy, what we've done, existing data already. We couldn't wait to do a big census before we set a program in place. This strategy was on prior work. It's trying to expand what we're doing. But it's the process. When I think one of the key things I wanted to do was we must have a baseline of all of our key crops. So I was delighted when we were doing this. So I was like, okay, we can remove that, we don't have to do that. I would like to register all our farmers in the digital world because I know if we do that, there are lots of services we get. So that's in our program. But with the work you're doing, I think you get a farm baseline of where we are. This is a little secret where you can ask World Bank, we really don't know the exact national average yield for rice. I'm not going to lie about that, I'm not going to shy about it. We must fix that. Only through what you're doing that we're going to be able to do that. So we know that's very true. We're going to do that. On the census, I'm delighted about that. My only concern was my team told me sticks cost a lot of money. It takes a very long time. And I wonder, and we can have this conversation with now technology and all of this more quickly. And set systems in place so that it can be more routine. Because we can really do it now, right? So I'm delighted that that work is going on and that we can engage on that as well. Transparency. I've seen all these reports. I've seen the news articles. I've seen all the states. They are what they are. What I would say going forward, I think, one of the main things we're going to strive for is being very transparent in what we do. And one of the ways I think we're going to deliver is to put a lot of emphasis on implementation and monitoring that implementation. So I didn't show you the institutional structure for how we're going to do things alone, but we will establish, in addition to the structures that we have, district monitors for implementation of programs on that things alone. Want people on the ground to tell us, we say we're going to do 10,000 hectares, we'll plow that. We want to make sure we've done that. We are not going to just stand on the roadside and you tell us, over there behind there, that's how we have the rest of the farms. We will take a drone and fly it and see if behind those trees there, we have the rest of the farms. This is some of the ways we're going to be very practical, and this is one of the ways we hope we will be able to get value for money for what's coming in the sector. I think that's good on that. Tax incentive is not, we're going to try as much as possible to include everybody that can do anything to feed themselves. So we know as part of the Vita program, a small part of it has to be addressing vulnerable populations. So, and where people can farm, where they can do what they can, we will support that. Let's see, am I missing anyone of us? I think I've covered all these round of questions that have come. I saw something on benchmarking, which I think I've addressed a little bit with the benchmark again.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the minister is already kind of let's give him a round of applause. We know a lot of more still has to be done, but this is just the start of the engagement. The program has been launched, it's now official, and it's going to guide government agenda for the next 3 to 5 years. So I would just advise our Minister of Agriculture that coming for the budget hearings around the 16th or 17th of this month, October. So we will zoom in more specifically on the objectives for next year, 2024, specifically. Because like someone was saying, how do we monitor that after 5 years, 6 years, can we see what's the impact of this alone? So, and the budget hearings of that $257 million, or there's a gap of 160, they say, we want to zoom in and know exactly what are the deliverables under that budget, what the areas or districts or sectors of the economy that will cover what are the inputs and activities now come to prioritize what's the goal of the private sector and government in achieving that. So that will be the focus and that will guide whatever we how to improve the budget for next year. So I want to thank you very much. But before we close, I think it is what fitting as we invite our Deputy Minister who was the Commissioner and the Deputy Commissioner to give you closing remarks. So let's give a round of applause to our Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, FS. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to use this opportunity to say thank you to Honorable Vice President, Honorable Chief Minister, all ministers and deputy ministers here present, all controllers, and everyone else who has come to support the beginning of this budget process. I want to say also thank you to my minister for his leadership, FS for your support, and most importantly to our budget team at the Ministry of Finance for the work that they have put in. There's a lot that has been going into what we saw today and what is going to continue starting next week. So I just want to implore each and every one of you to continue to take this process very seriously. 2024 is going to be new beginnings for us as we work to support the government, the president, and his big five projects. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming and enjoy your lunch. Thank you.
Just 1 more minute, please. Just 1 minute. Let somebody just tell us the arrangements for the hearings for next week and how we can pass for them, please.
Monday, we are going to start the budget discussions. The P5 ministries will come the following week because the minister and the financial secretary want to be in attendance of those P5 ministries. And we have also invited some key MBAs for who are revenue generating institutions to also attend. And we'll be having a bilateral discussion with other stakeholders like the Chamber of Commerce, the importers and exporters for us to agree on how to move on the revenue mobilization. The time is 8:30. Registration discussion starts sharp 9. You come with 50 copies of your presentation. And don't forget it's going to be on revenue focus. You tell us what you're able to generate for us before you come to tell us what you want. If you can't tell us what you're going to generate, don't tell us what you want. So the ministers and secretary of cabinet, you go along with your ministers to the restaurant of the hotel. And the honorable members of parliament will join the ministers at the restaurants for the